Maybe. Did you just see what my sister did?
What did I do?
Maybe that's going to be our new intro to Crystal Sage Wisdom episode 2.
Two. Welcome back, mi gente. As you can see, gorgeous day out. We are just receiving this vitamin D3.
Have to see the blessings.
Cafecito blessings. Salute. And salute to our Father in heaven who's...
Happy birthday, Papa.
Happy birthday, Papi, who his birthday's today.
We gotta be gentle when we place this down.
Oh, thank you for that reminder. Who's not only is it his birthday, but guess what, mi gente? Papi also loved coffee a lot.
And our dad, I mean, our parents are both very instrumental and have been instrumental in the things that we love. Mm-hmm. They have inspired our curiosities in different ways. I think our mom inspired devotion and faith, and exploring that.
And still does.
Still does. And our father was the big dreamer in every way. And he was always smiling and singing. He was always making friends wherever he went.
Everywhere.
He spoke broken English, very broken English.
Very. Even though he was here in New York, they migrated here. He migrated here when he was a teenager. And although he was here for the bulk of his life,
from Puerto Rico,
his English was never very good looking. Never.
It wasn't. And to be honest, when he spoke English, most of the time, sometimes we didn't understand. But for some reason, Dad would be hip to certain things. Like one time he came home with a fake big gold chain, like that had the rope layers, and he held it and he said bling 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 bling, and I'm like, who taught you that word?
Fast forward, what that word has become such a thing, right? Bling bling. Yeah, Papi was a character, like definitely very down to earth, very open, incredibly social, and I definitely feel like we get a lot of that from him, and his bloodline.
He was also very connected to the movements of what was happening locally, what Bochincha was happening, who was having what black party. He wasn't really into politics, but through him we were aware, and our family and our uncle who was kind of running locally and stuff like that. And we did grow up very connected to the pulse of our community, and we have continued that legacy even though he's been gone since 2009.
It's so interesting because it's been so many years, and there's those days where you wake up, for anyone that has experienced that level of loss and having to deal with that grief, it really is like a zigzag. Grief is not linear, because there are those days where it feels like where I have such a lightness about his passing and him not being here, and a real surrender. And then there are those days where I can watch a commercial or something sparks a memory, and my whole being just starts to cry like he just left yesterday. It's such a interesting thing. How have you been with grief, especially after years have gone by?
I would say the same thing. Our dad's passing was, in a weird way, a graduation point. And because when you have a connection, we had a very, very special connection to our father, and we want to talk about that because the father-daughter relationship is sacred, and so is the mother-son relationship. But we see a lot of inverted examples everywhere, and unfortunately, many of us haven't had the best examples in our lives of what those kinds of relationships could look like. And while we have very special traits in our bloodline on both our father's and our mother's side, that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes can seep through our own beingness. We gotta say that we were really blessed to grow up in a household with two parents who maybe they had their own personal struggles with each other, and as every couple does, but
Yes, true.
they gave their best as much as they could to us.
Yeah.
And they and the I had a very special connection with my father. He was always the one that was encouraging my dreams. I mean, what little I was always in plays and always doing something creative in in school. And later I learned that part of wanting to be so creative is sometimes when you live in an environment that wants to sort of carefully cultivate how a child is being brought up. There was a lot of fears in my family with some family members around exploring the industry. Like I always loved the music industry, and that provoked a lot of fears. But our dad, he loved it. He would encourage us to dream, whatever that was. If the last thing that he was encouraging us to dream was, when are we gonna open our own botanica,
Yeah.
right? And so many people, we were tired of explaining this. We would tell people all of the time, botanica, our shop botanical, was an homage to that connection that we were raised and brought up in, the mix of Catholicism, spirituality, exploring yourself, the taboos of those two worlds,
Mm-hmm.
and two Puerto Rican girls who were very confused about what those messages were. And in many ways, it, like we saw our dad, I guess, try to venture out and see what those things looked like. He was always exploring alternative things, copper. What could that do? How did that could the current could go through your body? I remember him having a little business and bringing somebody to do a seminar and show people. He would explore things like alternative supplements. He wanted to know about it. I think maybe he understood, even though maybe we didn't know, it wasn't a well communicated thing, that we were growing up in a very sick family, like very sick. We were often in the hospitals visiting our loved
Too
ones.
often
Too often.
in the hospital. That was a huge part of our childhood, actually,
Yeah.
going in and out of hospitals. It became almost a very normalized experience, and you become almost really desensitized to some degree. Like, whereas someone may experience, oh my God, my relative's in the hospital, and they freak out in totality. But we had experienced this so much growing up that we wouldn't have that freak out initially. It was more like, oh, okay, well, let's go visit, let's go figure it out,
And let's go support.
let's go support, let's go see how we could,
Let's
let's
go
go
bring the
find out the
tribe.
details, right? Let's go entertain, like it. We
Let's go
are
bring lots of food.
our head just warped into something else, but yeah, going back to your point, he really was one of those people in our lives consistently that was always open to listening, and also even like open
To
to even,
explore alternative modalities.
right, and even spiritual ways of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like even if as a young kid myself, I didn't always make that connection. Like, honestly, I don't think I actually started to make that connection for myself until I was in college or more, even though, because then you start to look back and you start to remember the things that would come out of his mouth. What
He
was
was
that one
very
show he would listen to?
he was
Like,
very politically incorrect, and he would learn
oh,
words that we didn't know what he was saying. A lot of times we thought he was saying gibberish, our dad, and
mm-hmm.
then later on we would learn that he would learn by words in other languages and just repeat them at
Random moments.
moments.
Yeah, yeah, yes, he sure did. He was definitely, well, you know what? I loved his sense of humor. Like, he was always wanting to laugh. Like, you know, in all honesty, the last several years of my father's life, he really lived in a sick body.
Yeah,
And
it was
honestly,
hard.
you wouldn't really know that he was like, if you saw him in the street, you wouldn't, the first thing in your that you would feel wouldn't be, oh, this man is sick or uncomfortable or suffering or in pain, because he always shined through, like joy or
He
like,
reflected your lightness
yeah,
through
it
his
was
eyes and
nice.
his smile.
And that's what you would receive. You wouldn't receive the, oh, woe is me, this is what I'm going through,
He didn't
this
suffer from
heaviness.
I syndrome,
No.
even though we don't know what his personal relationships were, right? But in terms of just father daughter,
And what we witnessed,
what we witnessed,
you
and
know.
even like we have friends who were like, your father's like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
He was chunky, lovingly chunky,
Yes, he was
but we were
joyful.
not offended. Why was he? They saying it like Santa Claus? I mean, God, I know that that's even an inverted thing right now, but the when you think about just the holiday childlike joy of jolliness, of smiling, of being in the
That's
present
the word.
moment, of embracing, like he would hug some of our friends, right? And I remember we had one friend. We're not gonna name drop her, but she would say like, "Your dad is like the one that would say your dad feels like Santa Claus." No, she was living here uh, with very little family, and and without a father figure nearby, and dad served as a father figure to our friends.
All the time. He was always like, all he had to do is meet you once,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much by the end of that one interaction or visit, you had been adopted.
Be adopted.
Along with that adoption would be a special nickname. You know, sometimes because he maybe couldn't pronounce your name correctly, or other times something that he would come up with. But yeah, that's when you knew
And
you were in.
sometimes, right, and those special nicknames were usually not politically correct.
Yeah.
Like, nicknames that some of his friends would have would be like um, Tony el Culiseco, which means Tony with the flat ass.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It was like, oh, here comes Tony with the flat ass coming into the
Right.
store. Like, really,
Can you
those.
imagine saying that now when we've become a
So,
culture
I
that we get so
know.
like offended, right?
We were really like, our family was super politically correct.
Oh,
I mean, he would call, well, sometimes he would see us, he was like, ¿Qué tú quieres, cabroncitas? And that's a really bad word, but the thing is that he wouldn't say it with malice, right?
yeah.
So then I think that, you know, when we spoke about how he was the inspiration with when are we going to open a botanica, cuando vamos a abrir una botanica, and then we opened the shop and we called it botanical, and we would tell people the L is for love. Botanica is to pay homage to the roots, to that type of holding space, a spiritual wellness shop, a location within the community where people who are, you know, exploring deeper questions about themselves, about the relationship to the world, to the surroundings, to your dogs, to your family. How do you start being more present? And you know, it's healthy to have those type of expressions. Some people don't feel called to go to a religious sort of institution. Others didn't feel like they wanted to go through like a therapist or a psychiatrist or a social worker. Some of the feedback that we would hear, and this is not to take away from anybody's specialties, it's just that everybody draws in certain people. And so, as we're telling you the story, we're kind of like letting you know and answering some of the questions that we would get often is like, how did you get called to this path? As you see, and we're starting to lay down the foundation for you, this is not a journey that just wake up one day and you're like, this is who I am. First of
I'm gonna
all,
do it.
you really, when you start understanding that this is where you're being called to serve, when you look back and you contemplate, and that comes with pausing, reflecting, taking tech breaks, you start to realize the story, the influences.
Correct, because honestly, just even before we even started to mess around with the idea of a physical space, you know, to your point about the call, you know, we were for years before that individually going through our own inner journey with that, you know, revolved around exploring, asking questions, you know, studying with different teachers, different modalities, learning to really be with oneself from a from a different perspective, not just yeah, I'm bored, estoy sola, what am I gonna do, but like with intention. I want to build a relationship with my whole being. I have these big questions, and especially because we were raised in a traditional Catholic household, so much of what we were going out there to explore, or so many of the questions that we were feeling within, weren't necessarily things that we felt were answered, or that we had experienced within our upbringing. So it was
They were
only during
taboo
that
to
time.
explore.
Right, they were considered, like something you just don't do. Like the fact that you would go out and even learn anything else or any other perspective from another spiritual path was really considered like a betrayal to, you know, the religion.
And while we say that, some of our family members, very dear, did feel like it was a betrayal. And when we closed the shop, they celebrated that we closed the shop. Um, we could talk about that in
Another story for another
another.
day.
That would be another story, right?
We'll talk about all the wonderful supporters you get when you are trying to birth your idea or when you have birthed it.
And things that you learn around along the way. So, for us, Crystal Sage Wisdom is sort of our way of not only sharing some of those stories that has taught us lessons from two sisters trying to build a business together, two sisters building a dream, or you know, listening deeply to the surroundings.
And two sisters that had to, before we were capable of doing all those things you just said, we had to learn to do that with ourselves first.
You have
Like
to do your own work.
understanding, like honestly, until you are in a place where you start feeling that inner call, the idea that you want to go outside of yourself to be of service or to do this or that shouldn't even be a thought until you have really began and have had really good made headway with yourself, with your inner healing, really have developed a relationship with your intuition, your senses, when you have taken time to really sift through the things that you were brought up with, not just within the home, but outside the home, that may or may not reflect you. So, all of these are aspects of really, in some ways, for the first time, figuring out like, who are you? Who am I? Like, I had to really figure out who is Alex.
Does that take 1 year, months? And I want to
Definitely not a
clarify.
master weekend.
Let me clarify. You can understand something very quickly. An epiphany, a download, multiple messages can come through in like a space of a
Clarity.
second.
Yeah,
But the application of it is a whole different story.
whole different.
And so when you're starting to feel that call, then you will see that it's almost like the universe will invite you to be an apprentice, and you will be tested in all ways according to what your intention is, right? I started feeling the call before the age of 13, but it was the age of 13 where I started taking independent steps toward it, to exploring. And so sometimes it's like cute when someone's like, they would come to our shop and be like, "You're so lucky to be around crystals all day and just do this," and they had no idea. Like,
No idea.
it's fun to be around crystals. It's
Yeah,
great to
because it
have these
was.
amazing
Yeah.
metaphysical conversations. It's amazing exploring all the beautiful journeys that we had with the thousands of people that we were able to share that with. So that's like a magical experience. It teaches you so much about life and people.
A lot.
A lot.
Which we will also be exploring in future
But
videos.
there is an isness to the fact that we were also starting a brand new business, didn't know what the heck we were doing. There was very little support, but we were still guided by that dream that was seated. And when you have someone, even if it's just one person in your life that sees you, that witnesses you, it's lucky that I had my sister. We're both very different people. And so when you came to the shop, for example, we were never trying to guide you toward the way I was seeing life, the way she was seeing life. We were just wanting you to understand that conversation more deeply with yourself,
Yep.
because everybody's different. Everybody wants something different. Everybody's expressing the language of interconnection, spirituality, wellness in very different ways. And many times we were like this is how we see ourselves so much in our parents, just sort of like in the middle, observing, learning. Our dad was an explorer. He was always learning about people, and he was never afraid or intimidated to be speaking to someone who was super wealthy, who spoke the most perfect English.
To
he
anybody, really.
he spoke to that person with joy, and he made memorable impacts with a whole variety of people from all different colors, races, creeds. And he taught us not to judge someone just on the basis of skin or where they come from. Not all kinfolk, right? Or not all skin folk are
Our
kinfolk,
kinfolk,
right?
yeah. You know, like dad, there was just certain sayings that he would always mention all the time to us that just stick with you. And one of them was, you know, he would always say, anywhere you go, make sure that the people that are being of service to you, that you take care of them. And you know, by that he meant respect. You know,
Good
if you
mornings,
right, good
hello, how are
morning, like
you?
being conscientious, good manners. If it was a tipping situation, take care of them. Like acknowledge. You know, like don't just go to places and only treat people with particular titles or particular bank accounts a certain way. No, you must treat everyone particularly, you know, within the same level of respect. But he would call out the people specifically that were being of service to you, because he would always also say, a lot of times, those people in every environment are the backbone to those environments. And when you show them that level of respect, those people will also, in turn, always not only give you respect, but take care of you in return. And let me
All
tell you,
the
that
time.
has come to love us up in every environment. My sister and I have done a lot of things together, but also we've done a lot of things separately, and
Mm-hmm.
so we've been and experienced very different type of worlds.
And
And
environments and
that
people
philosophy has always reigned true. Like
all
when
the
people will
time.
look out for you, they will love you up as much as you love them up. You know, so
Yeah, like
I
this.
appreciate that, and I've passed that down to my own children. You know, as they've been growing up, and even to this day, I always say,
It's
you
such an
take care of the
important
people taking
lesson.
care of you. Don't you know? Don't
Right.
skip
And
out.
and the world will reciprocate in the weirdest ways. And look, especially that those simple lessons of witnessing and kindness, believe it or not, when you're feeling that deep grief, when our dad passed away, he was my best friend. In terms of like that person who was the other person that had that dream, and witnessed my dream and wanted it almost as bad as I did, I think. And when he transitioned, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know. And it was weird, right? Because one, as a professionally, I was at the height of my career. I was at the peak of my career.
Yeah.
I was at the peak of where I wanted to be, that I had worked a decade to be. More later.
And
Side notes.
but I will add, not only has she had worked a decade, and when I tell you work, I mean like worked. Mucho sacrificio.
Slave hours. Yeah, it was not no 9 to 5. And when he passed away, I was in that world surrounded by hundreds of people that I considered friends, right? That were loving to me. So I had this rich professional life, rich outside friendship life, despite the fact that I didn't get a chance to spend so much time with them. And what I would say, um, healthier family relationships, right? Because so much has changed all these years later, just in the way society and social media and mainstream media and all that stuff has sort of,
Impacted.
we've allowed them to come in between us. So this is why we're strong, because no matter what world we've been in, whether we're in wellness, whether it's with politicians, whatever it is, we don't allow anything or anyone to intercut into the family relationship. You won't hear the bochinches outline of any little thing that might happen between us and the family. You learn to keep those things out of the limelight. You know, our dad was like that. We saw those things whenever there was family bochinche. He wouldn't engage. He was
No.
always very diplomatic, very loving, and as a result, people really loved him. But that didn't mean that he was a pushover,
No.
because everybody has their limit.
Oh yeah.
And then there were times where we'd be like, "Rah!" And everybody would be like, wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
Everybody would line up. It wouldn't happen often, but when it would happen, it was like, oh, okay.
And that was another lesson that we would also learn from our dad. Everybody has different temperatures. We all know people that seem to get set off by everything in the world.
Mucho fuego.
The slightest thing, you didn't give me 3 sugars in my coffee, you only gave me 2. I mean, the tantrums, right, that can set somebody off. And that gets old sometimes, to be around those kinds of energies or people. So my dad was on the other side, almost to the other extreme, where we were like, does he ever get mad? But he taught us the importance of needing to show your teeth, your thorns, at necessary points, whether
Right.
it was to, you know, like a mother who sees that their kid is like almost running into danger, and they grab the kid almost violently, and the kid gets nerve, maybe even traumatized,
Freaked out,
and
but
freaked
hey.
out. But your yell like "Mira!" saved that kid's life because they didn't see upcoming danger, right? So that's what I mean. Like, our dad taught us that power is important, is powerful, is necessary, but that it should be used with intelligence and timing. And not that his timing was always perfect, but when you go out there in the real world and you're communicating with folks in professional settings or even outside in the streets, all those things come into play. And these days, it could just save your life.
Oh my gosh, seriously. Learning to understand that you could be in the same sandbox with very different personalities and still flow nicely or work together nicely. Um, is a really powerful thing for relating in the world. At the same time, um, it doesn't mean, when you do that, it doesn't mean that you're in alignment with all those people in all the ways that they perceive life and living. And not at all. I mean, let's be honest, even with people in your life or that come closest to having the most in common with you, you're never fully in alignment with. So, but it doesn't mean that we cancel each other out or that we say, oh, I can't work with you. Because listen, if that was the case, it's like I always say to people, if we were really supposed to work alone or cancel everybody, the universe is big enough where we all would have been given our own planet.
And let me tell you
But we were
something.
put in the planet all together because we need each other.
We need each other.
And we need to know how to navigate with one another. Even, and not even, but especially when we don't agree. We have to try to find a way to
And
coexist peacefully.
listen, and our dad was always in environments with his family members that we knew he didn't agree with.
Yeah.
But you would never see.
You would never know.
You would never know. There was no tension. You know, through his, through what he did and exposed us to, we learned to be comfortable in our skin. But that's also a journey to be comfortable in your skin. But we learned to quickly adapt to different settings. And we're so lucky for that, because hey, our family, they love socializing. uh, they, both sides love parties, and they love music, and they never hesitated to this day. They still don't hesitate to to um to put a pause on being able to gather together. It's important to them. It's important to show that, you know, it's almost like we would have Perez family reunions. We would have little buttons with our name on it. Like, we really truly celebrated our family. And every single time we would go to those places, we would see a whole bunch of family friends and extensions. And that's when you start learning about who's doing what and whose kid is what. It's just
The reconnection and connection.
and connection, but it's missing these days.
Big
And
time.
at Botanical, we were trying to give back some of those beautiful communal moments that enriched our lives and still enrich our lives. Because when I tell you that all of the difficult moments that we have experienced as a global collective or as individuals or through the losses in the last couple of years that have just been hitting the gut, take a deep breath.
Woo!
It has
Do that 10
been
times.
the fortification of community, whether you're related to them or not, but that they're there and that you know that no matter what, that person
It's a constant.
is a constant.
Grounding.
Even if they don't agree with you.
And Botanical, when our brick and mortar was alive and well, was represented that for a lot of people throughout the years. And in different capacities. We had those that would come almost every day or throughout the week or monthly or seasonally, am I saying that right? Seasonally, or yearly. Everybody had like their pattern, but they understood, to my sister's point, that this was a place that I could always go to not only find specific things I work with within my life personally, candles, crystals, incense, those things, but more importantly, I would always feel very grounded, loved, and felt good. It was almost like a little reprieve from life. And I would say that one of the things that I would like to add is that was also a motivation for the shop, because my sister and I, as we were going through our own inner journeys and exploration, and we'll discuss some of these things on future videos of how interesting those unravelings can be to or do to your life, your mind, your emotions. And a lot of times when you are the one experiencing that, most people around you are not, they don't know what's really happening.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll think that you're crazy or that, oh, you're changed. Like, it can trigger so many reactions that you don't even know quite how to manage, because you're just kind of going through all those array of emotions and thoughts and sensations for the first time yourself. So there were so many people that were going through these inner journeys and awakenings, or as I like to say, remembering, alone. And we started to really acknowledge we were so lucky, because even though we experienced our own things as individuals,
Because that's important.
right, it's important, and also very different experiences, because my sister and I had very different, almost opposite experiences at different points, but we still had each other. There was always at least, you know, that like, oh, okay, even if even if we weren't in full alignment in particular things or areas, there was still that journey that we could come back to each other. And we realized a lot of people don't have that during a very crucial time. And that was actually a big motivation and something we would really prioritize within our space when we were working with people. Whether, we knew you, it doesn't matter your age, because honestly, like my sister has said earlier, there are many, many ways down this path. Everybody's will look and feel different. Pero there are certain things that we will all have in common. We all need community.
Right.
And that was like
and we all need teachers. We all
mentors.
need peers.
We need people to witness us, and we need teachings too. And there's a time and place for all of those. At the end of the day, understanding that you're the one driving your car, that all of those people are supporting you. Pero, and we were blessed to have that community with one another, because like we've been sharing about our dad and our family, we were brought up within a community, a family, and a community neighborhood that was
Mm-hmm.
very in alignment with one another.
Everybody knew each other's
Everybody knew
name.
each other.
Sometimes that was a little bit too close for comfort.
A lot of times, especially when you're a teenager trying to do stuff.
You rebel it, and then you grow up, and you see what the world has become, and
How lonely it feels. And that's the other thing, like here in New York. I mean, how many millions
so
of people
lonely.
live here in New York City, just in the boroughs alone? I mean, how many millions? And yet, the irony is that so many people walk these streets so fucking lonely. Excuse my language.
Oh my gosh,
Pero
just
I wanted
cursed.
to like enunciate that because it breaks my heart, and it's almost upsetting that people have to suffer such a level of loneliness anywhere really. But we this is our city, so this is what we've seen and been a part of.
So maybe we give you a little homework, and we invite you to comment below, and we listed different examples of why community is important,
Yeah.
and then our homework is to go outside your comfort zone and explore a way that you can make connection and start where you are. Sometimes that's just being okay with saying hi to someone,
Yeah.
right? Or if you're very, very shy and you're always looking down, maybe you set an intention to just take a deep breath, you know, and then try to speak and say hi, and just challenge yourself with little moments.
Little
They
bits.
don't have to be big, big, big steps. It's exciting. Isn't it exciting when you meet a small goal on the other side?
I'll actually say that with all the people we've worked with throughout the years, I would actually say that it is usually the smallest steps that take the biggest courage and wind up adding up to create the biggest change. So do not ever, ever, ever think, I just did that little thing, is nothing. Nothing. You'll be surprised how that supposed little thing just spearheaded your journey and your path. It's almost like you're claiming to yourself and to life and living and the universe and whatever your specific belief system is. You're claiming it. You're saying, I'm ready to start this part. I'm ready to start getting to know myself better. I'm ready to heal. Whatever the intention is. Like, what are you ready to do? Please comment.
Comment below. What are you ready to do, and what did you do?
What did you do? What little
What
step?
are you ready to do, and what did you do? That is your homework.
And before
that's my homework too.
And before you
That's
do
your
that,
homework.
I would say
Happy birthday, Papi.
happy birthday to Papi. Pero que before you do that, we would love for you to like this video. Subscribe if you haven't.
Tell a friend.
Tell a friend. Invite someone over.
Crystal Sage Wisdom is in the house. We're gonna be doing these videos and be in these mystery locations in the city, and we are open to lucrative invitations.
Let us know.
Let us know.
You want your sisters to come visit your business and have a little chat? Ay, ¿por qué no?
Roll out the red carpet, and nosotros estamos ahí.
Nosotros estamos ready to recibir,
and,
like we are ready.
We will receive with joy.
We have told the universe we're ready to receive.
We will receive with joy.
Greatness.
And we do require cafecito, good cafecito. So
listen,
this is a prerequisite of
in honor,
doing a video.
Also in honor of our dad, who was a big lover of coffee, I will say, I want to share that it was one of my favorite moments with him. I had shared a cup of coffee with him almost every morning, wherever he was hanging out, because my father, I think, spearheaded the movement of hanging out in restaurants and coffee shops all day.
Yeah.
I think Papi was ahead of his time.
Ahead of the yuppies in his neighborhood.
So he already had that ritual as part of his life, and I loved our time together, where we would just share a little cafecito and we would just catch up. Like, we really were good buddies with our dad, and we each had unique relationships. Like, she was pure daddy's little girl, and I never looked at myself as like, daddy's little girl, but we were like really
Still
fantastic
daddy's
friends.
little
Like
girl.
we each were just so close to him and different from different angles, and he gave us so much affection and love, and
And every single
especially
time he saw us, there was joy in his eyes.
always like he just wanted to
He was like, my
"Mwah,
girls.
love you
And
up.
then he would mess up our hair, and I would have a mini tantrum.
So we grew up with the type of love from a masculine figure that was very nourishing,
Yeah.
and we're very grateful to have had that. And that
And
being
he
said,
allowed us to make us our own. He allowed,
that's great.
he encouraged us to make our own decisions without smothering us. And I have to say, ladies, we have to work on that. Too much of smothering. Too many of us have smothering,
Personalities.
manipulative personalities and energies, and this is a big reason why you're not bringing people toward you, because it's a repelling. And then so then that's those are lessons that I had to learn the hard way too, because at one point of my journey I was in repel mode, and I didn't understand why I wasn't getting the types of relationship uh, dynamics that I was envisioning, that I thought I was putting out there.
Mm.
But there is a reason why they say you get more bees with honey,
El
not with vinegar.
caramelito
El
y el
caramelito.
caramelito. Mm.
And when I
I
think
want you to
about
be a repellent.
when I think about our dad, that's what I think about: honey, caramelito.
As he was pure caramelo. That's what he was.
Yes, yes. And so
Yeah.
we love you, papi. Happy birthday,
Happy birthday, Mira. Blessings to you. Dedicate this coffee to
and
you.
thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we'll see you very
We'll see
soon.
you pronto.
And don't forget to subscribe to our Substack, Crystal Sage Wisdom.
Everything will be linked down below.
Yes.
Pero don't forget, otra vez, like and subscribe, mi gente. We're growing the community and you're coming along with us.
That's right.
Ciao.